All right, friends, if you are tuning in live, I'm back at the home office. Mac and I are back from our honeymoon, and today I get to hang out with Ina. Ina is the founder of The Global Phenomenon, a podcast and community where new entrepreneurs gain the confidence and strategy to create global businesses from the start. Ina is the creator of the Be Found system, which outlines the exact steps for a new entrepreneur to step into the global stage with a world-class online presence that speaks directly to their desired audience. Originally from Caracas, Venezuela, Ina is fluent in Spanish, and she is proud to bring her Latin America heritage to the global stage. Now she lives in Boston with her husband and two sons, and today she is going to give us all sorts of information on how to use our websites and our online presence to attract our dream clients. So welcome.
Thank you. And congratulations on your wedding. I saw you on Instagram. Where did you guys go for your honeymoon?
So we got married in June, and then we just went to Maui, Hawaii for our honeymoon, and it was amazing.
Very nice. Very nice. I saw that you were in Maui. I'm like, oh my God, it sounds so dreamy. And now we're back.
We're back.
Lockdown.
Yeah, I know. We did it very safely. I feel pretty good about how we were able to travel, and it's nice to go, but it's also nice to come back and get ready for the holidays, right?
Yeah, that's right. So thank you so much for having me, by the way. This is incredible. So thank you for that great introduction. My name is Ina, and so the global phenomenon is basically all about what you guys are doing out there, about your audience, all coaches. The global phenomenon is really that coaching industry. Yeah. Originally, when I came up with the global phenomenon, I'm like, well, I want to be a global phenomenon. I want to be in the bigger stages. I want to put myself out there. So I want to encourage everybody to really think that big. And then I started to realize, I'm like, the global phenomenon is really the opportunity that we all have to step into a global stage anytime we want. All we have to do is just have that mindset that really wanting to put ourselves out there. And so I took kind of that passion that I have for no, let's just play big here, coupled with 20 years of web development experience. And I'm like, there is a way for us to do this with clicks. To me, making a website is just so easy. That's my zone of genius. It's that's a thing that I understand. Anybody can have an amazing presence that rivals anybody who paid $30,000 for their website, or $50,000 for their website.
Or is a famous celebrity,
Right.
I was just talking to a friend of mine, because growing up, my dream job in high school for a minute was to be a news anchor, because I loved how they told stories, and we watched them all the time, and they were local celebrities, but not celebrities that were on crazy lifestyles, but I wanted to make this impact. I wanted to be a leader. I wanted to tell stories. So when I was a sophomore in high school, I went to job shadow a news anchor, and in 10 hours I realized this was not at all my dream job, because they got up at 3 a.m. We literally walked through a dog park in the rain to tell this story. It was just so not glamorous. Okay. Yeah. So I thought that dream was done. And, I went down some other paths, many of our listeners know, but now I just had the realization this week, with the podcast and with Facebook Live, I have my own little news show. And how cool is that we have these tools and this audience ready and waiting for us to share our messages. We just have to know how to be strategic about it now. Right?
Exactly. So, and I love it that you got it done without having to be out in the rain if you don't want to, right? And if you want to, you can do that too. You can make this anything you want, and your online presence can reflect anything you want. You just got to really do it right. And that's why I'm here to talk to you guys about how to do this right.
Yeah, I want to just touch quickly, because I always think it's so interesting what brings people here, our personal stories, plus the opportunity and time with technology and needs in the world, tend to bring us to where we are now. So you mentioned you have 20 years of experience in web development, but talk to us a little bit about how you became your own boss.
Yeah. I'm going to tell you something. This was not my dream when I was little. I was brought up in a very successful corporate environment, corporate household. My father was the president of IT of the biggest company in my country. My mother was an equally successful like project manager, and at some like they worked in the same company. At some point, she was doing projects for him, and everybody was like, "Oh, like how's that gonna work?" And so they always talked about work at the dinner table, and they were talking about IT stuff. And I thought I was just gonna grow up to be a writer. It's like me, like in high school, because I'm great at writing. Like I had a creative mind back then. And then my mother told me, you would be really good with computers. Why don't you take a class? And both my parents are computer people. So I took a class senior year of high school. I took a programming class and I fell in love. I'm like, are you telling me? And people started telling me like, like people get paid really well for like being in computer science, for being an engineer. And I'm like, you're telling me people are going to pay me really well to play a game? Because that's what programming felt like to me. So I went to school for computer science. I thought I was going to become a software engineer, and that was going to be my path. I was going to play for money, right? Yeah. Then once I graduated, and it was right after 9/11, I come from Venezuela. I was studying at an American university, and companies were really tight with giving visas, with giving work visas. So I applied to so many software engineering jobs that I didn't get. And the only place that took me in was a place that took me in to learn about project management in software. And that's where I started to really expand my horizons, not just technology, but management, but knowing how to organize my time, about working with people. And in that job, I just kept telling myself, like, I know this is not what I want to do forever, right? Like my dream was shattered when I couldn't become a developer. Like, I know this is not it, but I didn't have any examples. I grew up in a corporate house. Now I'm in a corporate environment where everybody is just heads down doing their thing. So I was like trying to break out of a jail cell, but I didn't know, like there was nobody on the other side with the keys. So it took me a really long time of like trying different things. I'm like, okay, I should accept the fact that working for corporate is my life, and I should just find other ways to entertain myself, to find my purpose. So I started taking piano lessons, and I started learning about medical terminology, and
What a brain you have.
I just started, I would go down to the local cafe and do like chemistry exercises. Like I just wanted to like try different things. And one of those things that I ended up trying was starting a business.
Yeah. I can totally relate to so much of what you're saying. And I think a lot of people can with this, not having the role models. You know, I personally grew up, everyone knows, in small town Wisconsin. My mom's, a school social worker. My dad works for the city. And it was just really frustrating to know that there was something more, but not know what that was or how to get there or why I felt so out of place. And so these are extreme examples that you're sharing, Ina, of like chemistry, piano, and I think that that's so important at some point in each of our journeys is to throw a bunch of spaghetti onto the fridge and see what sticks. Because without taking action, without trying new things, you will never know what's on the other side of your comfort zone. Right. So I love that, even if it's just pulling up your computer and doing some different online courses or quizzes, to really find what sticks. And so for you had all these experiences, you knew kind of how your brain worked, that, computer tech was a game to you, which, by the way, the whole joke that like, I'm going to play a game and get paid, I just love that, because I think that that is what we all ought to be feeling and seeking, that like we are playing a game, the whole idea that if you find what you love, you'll never work a day in your life. Like that is real, people. Like even if you can find games to play and get paid. And it sounds like, Ina, you found a new game in owning a business. So tell us a little bit about how you were able to blend all of your experiences and passions into what you're doing now.
So first of all, at the moment that I started my business, I was working full time. I had just had a baby, and a friend of mine had asked me, hey, can you do this for me? And I'm like, sure, I'll do it. And she wanted to pay me for it. I'm like, why are you paying me? I was just doing it as a favor, like fixing something on her website on the HTML. And I'm like, I'm just doing it as a favor. It's fine. And she's like, no. I'm running a business and you're a provider. Like where you and I are right now. Like we don't give away our services for free.
That is a good friend.
Right. And she's like, no, I'm going to pay you for this. She was in a way trying to work on my money mindset right then. And by the way, it took me years to even know what money mindset was. But when I had that check in front of me, I'm like, people will pay for this. So that's when I started making websites on the side. I had just had my newborn baby. I would wake up at 4 a.m. I would go to bed really late at night. Then within months, I discovered podcasts. And I'm like, again, with my like playing mind, I'm like, I think I could start a podcast. So I already had a web host because I had already started making websites. So I figured out a way to host my own podcast, because back in 2012 it wasn't really a thing. Like there weren't a million hosts that you could pick from. So I'm like, I'm just gonna host my own podcast. So it's still out there. Like up until last year I was hosting my own podcast on my website, like literally not paying a host for anything. And it was just like that playing mind. It took me years to find a role model that would show me about this universe of entrepreneurship. And that's when things started to open up. That's when I was like, oh, I can do anything I want and get paid for it, and also incorporate a podcast, and also make a website, and also
be a news anchor.
Be a news anchor. And I kept, every time that I came up with a business idea, and I'm telling you, like I would come up with one like right now at noon, and by 3 a.m. I had a website up and running. Like that was my first go-to. I'm like, okay, I want to start a business. I'm going to start a website. I'm going to start a website. I feel like we all have that thing. It might not be creating websites. That was the thing that I went to for me, but everybody has that thing. Either they start blogging right away, or they start planning, right? Like, oh, I just need to plan content. Oh, I just need to get a certification. Oh, I just need to take this course. Oh, I just need to. When really what we need to be focusing on is helping people. That's how you start a business, is by starting to help people who acknowledge your value, so you can start charging for this. That's where really we should start. But we all have that comfort zone that we go to. So that's where my business started to evolve in. Now I want to help people get out of corporate. I quit my corporate job. It will be 3 years in 1 month. And I never went back. So it all worked out. Everything was cool. And now I do my business coaching plus incorporating the website. And that's a completely separate story of how I joined these two. Happy to get into it, but I don't want to derail. I want to make sure that everybody gets.
We want to get into that zone of genius that you have, because I know a lot of coaches think that they need to get their website. Okay, I'm going to be a coach, but they like get certifications or they do other things. But I know something on the minds of all coaches is a website. And that's really your expertise. So let's talk about, let's help some others, like you said.
Okay, let's start to help some people out. The first thing I'm going to say is that, do you need a website to have a solid, successful business? The answer is no. I will always answer that question with no. You could start getting clients right now. You could start getting word of mouth right now. Please do not let your website, or the lack of it, stop you from starting to help people and get paid doing what you do. Okay.
I'm so glad you said that, because like you said, with, you have a business idea, you go start a website, but then what my experience has been is in doing that, or even in starting a Facebook group, or like that first big idea you have is never the last idea. It's never where you end. Right?
Yes, exactly. So for me, that just happened to be my comfort zone, right? Like starting a website. I'm going to tell you right now, none of those websites that I started when I had that first spark even exist now, right? Like it would become obsolete very, very quickly, because my idea would start to evolve really quickly, because I hadn't really started going out there and helping people. I didn't know what my message was. I didn't know who I was trying to help, who I was trying to be in the world. Where did I fit in the world? I was just like, blah, just like blurring whatever I could come up with. And that's what went there. So so I started to run into a really big issue when I was helping people with their websites, because that's the point where they were, right? They were at the point where like, blah, like I want a website. Here's what I want on it. Here you go. Here are my photos. I have them fill out a questionnaire. Okay, here you go. Ina, go make it. Here's where I started to run into issues. that once you give a developer your requirements and you're thinking they're the professional, they will make something pretty. I've seen so many pretty websites. These are all like easy to make because there's so many of them. Like it can't be that hard. This is what that person does for a living. Here are my requirements. You go make the site, right? Making a website does take time, especially if that developer is working with other clients. If you're not their only client, they're going to take a little while. And I'm talking like a couple months. I'm talking like 3 months. That used to be like the average for me to make a site, including the back and forth. Here's where the problem came. You, as the entrepreneur, didn't freeze your business when you gave the requirements away. You kept coming up with new ideas. You kept changing your positioning. You kept changing your message. You kept finding new clients and realizing maybe I'm supposed to be helping them instead of these people. And the more changes happen, the more you're going back to the developer and saying, wait, have you started working on that page? Because I have a change for that. Hey, did you already do that? Let me change you that. Let me send you. So the more things you're giving the developer, the more the developer is like, wait a second, like this is not the same as the requirements you gave me in the beginning. And by the way, I'm not even talking about big changes. I'm talking like little stuff that to you, even if you were talking to somebody else and you're like, I just sent them these things, but they're no big deals, right? Anybody looking at that list would say like, yeah, those are not big deals. They should be able to handle that. But on the developer side, it's a completely different story, because now they have to stop to analyze, is this the right thing to do? Should we be using a different tool for that? So really experienced developers will have a process to help guide you through that. But the truth is that you, as the client, you're always expecting things to just happen based on the initial estimate. I'm expecting my website in 3 months and for it to be perfect and for it to be beautiful. Yes. So you don't realize of everything that goes into it. Yeah. That's when I started to realize that I can't, in good faith, just continue to be making websites by the hour, because the client is always going to feel dissatisfied and I'm always going to feel cheated, because I'm always going to feel like I'm getting more work but not getting paid for it. And the client is going to feel like, why is this taking longer than you told me? Well, because of this. It's just an impossible situation, even if the developer is completely ethical and professional and knowledgeable, and even if the client is a completely reasonable person, okay? These are just things that happen. So that's where I came up with my methodology. I call it the Be Found system, right? Where I can't just land here and get your requirements. I need to be in there with you. So I created this group experience so that people can learn together, where half of the program is a 14-week program, where half of the program, we are figuring out your message. And because I've done this for 20 years, because I've known how to do this, I know what are the things that you need to be thinking through. And I get you out there to really find your ideal client and to really identify your premium offer, so that by the time we get to the website creation, the website takes us 6 weeks to make. And in the meantime, I am keeping you working on something that we've already established we needed. Right? So there's no new influx of things coming in, because we've already established all of that up front. And I just ran that program really, really successfully this summer with 5 people in the group. They all loved the experience. They all couldn't believe that, like, they thought they were getting a website out of this, and they got so much more in their business out of it. And every website went live on time and with everybody being happy about it. And that is unheard of with website projects. So that's what I'm here to say, is that if you're thinking about, you're ready to level up with your website, you got to be aware of all these things that could happen when you work with a service provider.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that you're really mirroring so much of the entrepreneurial experience that I would love to have just a deadline and things are going to go exactly as I planned in my little 10-week planner and checklist. But through experience, through action, you gain so much more knowledge that puts you on new and different paths. And I think that the website piece has always been a challenge for me and my clients, because it can be tricky to say, hey, in 6 months, I'm going to be doing the same exact thing, because that's not usually the case. You know, I'm personally working and changing my website every single month with, tweaking verbiage or, testing and like fine tuning some things. So I'm curious, in that back work that you're doing, what are some of the like pillars or things that don't change or can be done at one point in time and then be reflected 6 months from now?
Yeah. So I think that the basics is what you said is really right, that your website is going to continue to be in flux. So imagine somebody working with a developer and continuously changing like everything that you're changing right now, right, in your website every month, those things changing during the process, and then you as a client not wanting to go live because it's not perfect yet, when in reality it will go live and you will still be making changes to it, right? That's just going to be like the standard. So what are some things that you should be, that like we do in the program to make sure you're in a good spot? We clarify your messaging, we clarify your lead magnet. So a lead magnet is something that you should stick with for a few months, right? It's something that should be attracting people to exactly what you want to attract them to. You may change it as you get more people, as you get more clients. You will think there's a better way that I can do my lead magnet, and that will change down the line. But something that you can establish now is your brand, right? What are going to be not only your colors and your logo, but what is it that your personality is? When people come to your website, how do they know that they need you, specifically you, to help them with this, right? So I think that has to be there. Everything else that changes is going to be tweaks the more clients you have. So I would say messaging has to be tight, your lead magnet has to be ready, your branding has to be right. Once you have those pieces, that's the foundation.
Yeah.
Right. And I don't let anybody go through the program without actually doing all the heavy lifting of actual market research. Because I'm going to tell you one thing, there's a huge misconception that only people who are starting out need to do market research, and that experienced people are beyond that. So when I get clients who tell me, I don't think I need to do the market research module because I already know my client, I'm like, no, you're getting it backwards. In fact, it's the beginners who never do market research. That's like not a thing for them.
Yeah.
The experienced people are doing market research all the time. Right. Constantly. Every conversation they have is a market research opportunity. So when I guide people through market research, I never take no for an answer. I'm like, no, we are doing this. And they always end up finding out something that they never did before. Right. So yeah, messaging, branding, the lead magnet, that's your foundation.
I love what you're saying about how market or branding is not about your logo or your colors. It's really about that feeling that you evoke in other people. Yeah. Because to me, branding is like that secret key. That's like the, oh my gosh, that's for me type of thing. And that's not because I love your logo or because you have a Labradoodle and so do I. It's because you evoke some emotion in me that makes me want to move forward and connect with you.
Yeah.
So I think that's huge.
Yeah. And one thing that I would love to say is that I love websites of entrepreneurs that when I go to their website, it makes me want to give them a hug. Like that's the kind of website that I like. But everybody has a different view of what makes a great website, right? So that's another thing that we had to factor in is that I don't want to finish the program with 5 people who have basically the same website, just different colors. So I have a process, like a proprietary process that is mine to basically read what is on your mind so that when you walk out of there, you see that your website is not like any of the others and you love what you see. I had one time, the first time that I ran this program in this year in 2020, I had one person who was like, I don't want long scrolls. You know how now the fashion is like you keep scrolling through the page and more information pops up and then there's a picture of you and then there's a little bit more about your offer and then there's a little bit about your blog and then he's like, I don't want people to have to scroll that much. So we made a website with everything that we found out about it, reading his mind. And he ended up with a website that was nothing like the rest. And he was excited about it. So I think that's really important too, to not just buy into like the cookie cutter style, because not everything is going to be the same. It will depend on your messaging, on your branding, on your personality, and on your audience. Yeah. What are they ready to do? What are they used to seeing on the site?
Yeah. And I love how even in tech, right? So in creating like graphics and an experience on a website, which not all coaches are familiar with, right? They're typically not that sided, tech not in their brain. But what I love what you're saying right now is that there is a niche, there is an opportunity, there's a website, there's a perfect client for everyone, right? Yeah. And this abundance in clientele, I think is so important to speak on. especially right now in 2020, when we're seeing such a massive influx of online programs and coaching, that people can feel like, oh, I'll just be another website out in the world. I'll just be another life coach. I'll just be this other thing. But when you can fine tune your brand, the emotions you evoke, the voice that you use, the experience you give other people, there is one in these millions of users that are perfect for you, if not 1,000. So talk to me a little bit about that. How do you help people really stand out? Because there are more coaches and more websites every day.
This is what I tell my people, is that I even did like a whole masterclass last year called How to Stand Out in a Saturated Market. And I got so many signups. And in the beginning of the masterclass, I'm like, okay, who believes the market is saturated with coaches? Everybody raise their hand. And by the time that I explained this one thing that I'm going to explain right now, I'm like, who believes now that the market is saturated? Everybody's like, yeah, I don't believe that anymore. So I'm going to tell you what that change of mindset is. When I was in corporate, anybody who said, oh, I have a business on the side, I didn't think of this huge coaching industry. I thought, oh, they probably sell Mary Kay. They probably sell, like, I hadn't even heard about Beachbody back then. Like, it was just like Mary Kay and Avon. That's all I knew.
Now right? They have an Etsy shop and some,
right? So here's the deal. I was in corporate and I was there for 15 years and I never heard about coaching. All right. So right there, I am telling you right now that there's an entire population out there who has no idea what coaching is. And I'm also going to challenge every single person, because if people can relate to this, like, you'll see how this is not saturated at all. How many of you have family members and friends who don't understand what you do?
I was exactly just going to say that. I'm like, right? My family still thinks that I like coach a sport.
Right. Like, my family still has no clue. My mother has learned what I do by heart, so that if anybody asks us, she's like, she coaches people online. Yeah. Did I get that right? Yeah. Is that like, so right there, you can see in your real universe that there is so much opportunity for coaches out there, because right now you feel like it's saturated because that's what you see in your feed, because you are inside this bubble. There are so many people out there in your physical reality who have no idea that this is a thing, and no idea that you can actually help them with something. So is the market saturated? Absolutely not. The definition of market saturation is that there's literally no more clients for that thing, and people just have to get over it by innovating on an existing product or finding or like doing something completely different. And that is not the case with coaching. So how do you stand out? The truth is that people don't have a spreadsheet of every coach and they're not comparing everybody's offer and everybody's brand. You simply put yourself out there and you will start attracting people like bees to honey. It's not a competition. If somebody relates to what I'm saying, they will just be drawn to me. That's just what happens. And I'm not peeling them off somebody else's audience. It's okay to follow multiple people. How many of us right now they're listening to me follow different people and listen to different podcasts and sign up for different courses? This is not a zero-sum game. So the market is not saturated. You don't have to stand out over everybody. All you have to do is be yourself, and the right people are going to be attracted to you. So that's really the only trick, is to stop mimicking, stop trying to see what works for everybody else. Do your homework, take courses. I'm constantly in a process of evolution, right? It's not like once I quit my job and I became a coach, now I know everything and I don't need to learn anything else. I am constantly signing up for courses and learning from the best and seeing how I can level up. So you can always be doing that, but there's no shortage of clients for anybody right now.
Yeah, I love that. And it makes so much sense when you talk about this. Like, think of your real life, because what you see on social media is not real life. That is the algorithm showing you what they think you want to see. You know, if you've seen the social media documentary, you know that there are actual algorithms working to show you more of you. So of course, when you log onto your Instagram or your Facebook and you see everyone starting a coaching program, you might think that. But when you take a step back and you look at your neighborhood, when you look at the people in your real life, coaching is absolutely a recession-proof and massive opportunity of an industry, because I have multiple coaches. Ina has multiple coaches.
Yes.
So this idea that you have to stand out or be different, I think is a little bit twisted. I believe that intimacy beats authority. And what you're saying, Ina, if you can be yourself, if you can make real connections and show up true to you, there will be people that come to you. So
I like that a lot. And and it's one of those things that when I feel like I'm getting too close to offering something that is too much like somebody else's, right? All I have to do is just get a reality check and realize my people have probably never heard of this other person. They're not aware of it. They're not comparing us all in a line and say like, wait a minute, that person used babe in their group name, and that person also used babe in their group name. I wonder if somebody copied somebody else. It doesn't work that way. You do whatever is true to you.
Yeah, that's so huge. So I want to shift gears a little bit, and I have just a few last questions for you, a little rapid fire, if you will, because you've already given us so many nuggets and things that we can be thinking about in our business. But when we think more broadly about just living our dream lives, what is one thing you could tell listeners to do today that would help them get closer to their dream life?
This is, I'm just going to say it, but be honest with yourself. So many of us look at the coaching industry and say, I want to be like her. I want her business. I want to be like that. I want to sell that. When in reality, there's something in the back of our minds that is telling us, no, wait, what I really, really, really want to do is this other thing. And then there's another part of your brain telling you, yeah, but that doesn't make any money. So you got to be looking at this other way, right? So what I would hate to happen for anybody listening is that they're like, oh, I make websites. Let me study Ina's background. Let me study Ina's social media. Let me study Ina's program. And maybe I can offer something similar because I make websites too. I can be just as successful as Ina, right? When in reality, websites is not what makes them sing, right? It is crocheting, right? And they could become an authority in the crocheting field, and that would make them so delighted. But right now, because it's so easy to them, because it feels like a game, they don't feel like there's any money there, right? So I would say step one, be honest with yourself. Because I don't want you to start a business like mine or to mimic Hanna's business like hers, because you can write, let's do the same thing that Hanna is doing, and you end up getting yourself in another corporate situation, right? In another spot where you're like, I really wish I had done that other thing. And now you realize that there's all these crocheting influencers. And you're like, wait, I didn't know that was a thing. So be honest with yourself and go for the path that really, really you want. Forget about the money. The money comes to people who stick it out, who work hard towards it, who learn about it, who become part of that industry. That's where the money is, but it has nothing to do with the actual industry, with the actual job. Do whatever you want and incorporate yourself into that field.
Beautifully put. You know, if you look out at what everyone else is doing to decide what you want to do, you're a copier. But if you look inward and look at there for what you want to do, that's when you're a creator.
Yeah. And I'm going to tell you, I've had coaches that have tried to discourage me from doing the websites, who have told me, Ina, anybody can hire somebody off of Fiverr and make a website. You should, like, in order to charge the high prices, you have to let go of the technical stuff and just offer the business value. And I tried that for a couple clients in the beginning of my business, and it didn't feel aligned. I went back to like, I have 20 years of experience, and I started to feel like I was doing a disservice to my people and that I was letting go of something that was important to me. You guys have any idea how much fun I have doing CSS? If anybody knows what CSS is, like, I love it. If nobody knows what CSS is, well, that's my world. Yeah. That's what I love, right? So listen to yourself first.
Amazing. So if folks want to continue this conversation with you, Ina, and learn more about their own website, how can they stay connected or continue the conversation with you?
I would love that. So next week, I'm actually teaching a workshop because I am launching this Be Found program is starting up again in January. And so I would love to invite everybody to come join me in this workshop. And the workshop is about figuring out your message and your ideal client and your offer, because I don't want any excuses. I don't want people to think like, well, I'm not ready for a website because I haven't figured this part out yet. Well, then let's figure this part out then. So I'm doing a workshop next week on Wednesday night, and you can go sign up for it at theglobalphenomenon.com/6, the number 6 figures. It's called, I call it the 6-figure online business workshop. So come, let's get that figured out, because I want you to be ready to really step it up in 2021. theglobalphenomenon.com/6 figures.
What an amazing opportunity, Ina. Thank you so much for sharing so much of your energy and insights today. Definitely be sure to check her out at theglobalphenomenon.com/6 figures. And friends, I will be back next week with another inspiring guest that will help you make your dream life your real life.
And thank you so much, Hanna. It was a pleasure being here.
Amazing.